April 30th, 1944, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. German Panzer IV crews peer through their periscopes at the misty treeline, hands steady on their gun controls. The forest is silent except for the distant rumble of engines, a sound they've grown accustomed to over months of warfare. Radio static crackles in their headsets as commanders report Allied movement ahead. The Germans expect another grinding engagement with slow Sherman tanks, the kind they've fought dozens of times before. But today, something is different. Through the morning fog comes a new sound, the high-pitched whine of an engine running at maximum speed. Within seconds, an M18 Hellcat bursts from the treeline at 55 miles per hour, fires its 76mm gun with deadly precision, and vanishes back into the forest before the German crews can even traverse their turrets. This moment marked the beginning of a technological revolution that would render traditional tank warfare obsolete forever. The German approach to tank warfare in 1944 remained rooted in doctrines developed during the early victories of 1940 and Neuester Wehrmacht. Tank crews carried field manuals that emphasized the superiority of German engineering, thick armor plating, powerful guns, and methodical advance and engage tactics. The Panzer IV AOS Fust RH, weighing 25 tons with 80 millimeters of frontal armor, represented the backbone of German armored formations. German tank commanders had spent 3 years perfecting the art of frontal engagement. Their crews trained to identify enemy vehicles at maximum range, engage with their 75mm guns, and rely on superior armor protection to absorb return fire. This doctrine had proven successful against Soviet T-34s and early American Sherman tanks, both of which operated according to similar principles of frontal assault. By spring 1944, however, German tank production struggled under the weight of Allied bombing campaigns and resource shortages. While German factories managed to produce only 48 Panzer IV tanks per month, American industrial capacity was preparing to unleash something entirely different. The Germans expected to face more of the same: slower tanks engaging in traditional duels of armor and firepower. Wehrmacht intelligence reports from early 1944 described American tank destroyers as defensive weapons, designed to stop German advances rather than pursue and destroy. This fundamental misunderstanding of American tactical philosophy would prove catastrophic. German planners assumed that any tank destroyer would operate like their own Jagdpanzer, heavily armored, slow-moving guns designed for ambush warfare from prepared positions. The reality waiting in American factories would shatter every assumption. German tank crews held about armored warfare, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, March 1943. American engineers pored over blueprints that would revolutionize tank warfare. The M18 Hellcat represented a radical departure from conventional thinking instead of matching German armor thickness. American designers chose speed as their primary weapon. The Hellcat specifications read like a racing car rather than a traditional tank destroyer. Weighing only 17 tons compared to the German Panzer IV's 25 tons, the M18 mounted a powerful 76mm M1A2 gun on a chassis capable of 55 miles per hour. This speed came from deliberate design choices that German engineers would have considered heretical. Armor thickness of only 25 millimeters maximum, compared to 80 millimeters on contemporary German tanks. General Andrew Bruce, commander of the Tank Destroyer Force, championed this philosophy of mobility over protection. His doctrine stated that tank destroyers should shoot and scoot, engage the enemy at maximum effective range, and withdraw before return fire could be accurately directed. This required vehicles capable of rapid acceleration and high sustained speeds across varied terrain. The Continental R975 radial engine provided 400 horsepower, giving the Hellcat a power-to-weight ratio that exceeded most contemporary tanks. This engine, originally designed for aircraft, could propel the 17-ton vehicle across rough terrain at speeds that German tank commanders would find incomprehensible. American testing revealed that the M18 could accelerate from 0 to 30 miles per hour in 12 seconds, faster than most automobiles of the era. More importantly, it could maintain maximum speed across farmland, through forests and over hills that would force heavier tanks to slow significantly. The torsion bar suspension system allowed high-speed operation without sacrificing gunnery accuracy. By late 1943, American factories prepared to mass-produce this revolutionary vehicle. The Buick Motor Division received contracts to manufacture 2,507 Hellcats, a number that exceeded total German heavy tank production for the entire war. This industrial capacity would soon translate into battlefield superiority that German commanders could not comprehend. Normandy, France, July 18, 1944. The first documented encounter between German armor and the M18 Hellcat occurred near the village of Saint-Vith, where Obergefreiter Klaus Müller's Panzer IV crew experienced something they could not explain to their commanders. The morning began routinely. Müller's tank occupied a hull-down position overlooking a valley where American forces had been observed the previous evening. German doctrine called for patient observation, target identification, and methodical engagement at maximum range. The crew had performed this procedure dozens of times against Sherman tanks, which typically approached slowly and engaged in prolonged duels. At 8:47 hours, Müller spotted movement in the tree line 800 meters distant. Through his commander's periscope, he observed what appeared to be an American tank destroyer moving at impossible speed. The vehicle emerged from concealment, traversed the open ground in less than 30 seconds, fired a single round that struck the ground 5 meters from Müller's position, and disappeared back into the forest before his gunner could complete target acquisition. The German radio transcript, preserved in Wehrmacht archives, recorded Müller's confused report. "Command, this is Tiger 7, contact with enemy tank destroyer. Vehicle speed approximately 80 kilometers per hour. Engagement duration less than 1 minute. Unable to return fire. Request instructions." This encounter violated every principle of tank warfare that German crews understood. Tanks were supposed to move slowly, engage deliberately, and rely on armor protection during extended duels. The Hellcat's behavior seemed to contradict the laws of physics. No tracked vehicle should be capable of such speed while maintaining gunnery accuracy. Müller's gunner, trained to engage targets moving at 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, found his target tracking skills useless against a vehicle moving 4 times faster than any tank he had previously encountered. By the time he calculated range and deflection, the Hellcat had vanished. German tank crews began reporting similar encounters throughout July 1944. Each report described the same phenomenon: American vehicles moving at impossible speeds, engaging at long range and withdrawing before effective return fire could be delivered. Wehrmacht intelligence initially dismissed these reports as battlefield confusion or exaggeration under stress. The reality was far more disturbing for German tank forces. American industry had produced a weapon that rendered traditional tank tactics obsolete, and German commanders had no effective counter-strategy. Detroit, Michigan. August 1943 to April 1945, the Buick Motor Division transformed automobile production lines into the most efficient tank destroyer manufacturing operation in history. Factory records document an industrial achievement that German planners considered impossible: mass production of complex military vehicles at automotive industry speeds American production. Philosophy differed fundamentally from German manufacturing approaches. While German factories focused on handcrafted precision and individual vehicle perfection, American plants emphasized standardization, interchangeable parts, and assembly line efficiency. The M18 Hellcat benefited from automotive industry techniques that reduced production time from weeks to days. Factory workers, many of them women who had replaced men serving overseas, assembled Hellcats with the same efficiency previously applied to Buick automobiles. The production line moved at a pace that would have seemed impossible to German tank manufacturers, who still relied heavily on skilled craftsmen and custom fitting of individual components. Monthly production figures revealed the staggering scale of American industrial capacity. During peak production months in 1944, Buick delivered 185 completed Hellcats, more than Germany's total monthly production of all tank types combined. This represented one Hellcat completed every 4 hours during round-the-clock production shifts. The contrast with German heavy tank production was stark. During the same 20-month period that American factories delivered 2,007 Hellcats, German manufacturers completed only 200 Tiger II tanks. Each Tiger II required approximately 300,000 man-hours to complete, while the standardized Hellcat needed only 15,000 man-hours from raw materials to finished. Vehicle.quality control records show that American mass production maintained mechanical reliability standards that exceeded German. Handcrafted vehicles. Standardized parts allowed field maintenance with common tools, while German tanks required specialized equipment and skilled technicians rarely available at the front lines. The economic implications were equally devastating for Germany. Each Tiger II cost the equivalent of $2.3 million in current dollars, while the Hellcat cost approximately $380,000. This 10-to-1 cost advantage allowed American forces to deploy 6 Hellcats for every German heavy tank produced. By war's end, American factories had demonstrated that democratic industrial capacity could overwhelm any totalitarian manufacturing system. The numbers spoke for themselves. 247 Hellcats versus 200 Tiger IIs represented more than a production advantage. It demonstrated the superiority of free enterprise and skilled industrial workers over state-controlled manufacturing and slave labor. Fort Knox, Kentucky, and Putlos Training Ground, Germany. 1944. A comparison of German and American tank gunnery manuals reveals two completely different philosophies of armored warfare. One emphasizing methodical precision, the other prioritizing speed and flexibility. The German manual, Richtlinien für die Führung der Panzertruppe, instructed crews to engage targets at maximum range using precise gunnery techniques. German tank commanders were trained to identify enemy vehicles through detailed silhouette recognition, calculate range using sophisticated optical equipment, and engage with deliberate aimed fire. This process typically required 3 to 5 minutes from target acquisition to first shot. German gunnery doctrine emphasized the superiority of their optical equipment and crew training. The Zeiss optics in German tanks provided magnification and clarity that exceeded most Allied equipment. German gunners trained extensively in range estimation, wind compensation, and ballistic calculation. Their manual assumed that superior equipment and training would allow them to destroy enemy tanks before those tanks could close to effective range. American tank destroyer doctrine, embodied in the manual Employment of Tank Destroyer Units, took the opposite approach. American crews were trained to achieve quick kill, rapid target acquisition, immediate engagement, and swift withdrawal. The entire engagement sequence was designed to take less than 1 minute from first target sighting to departure from the firing position. The Hellcat's gunnery system reflected this philosophy. Instead of complex optical range-finding equipment, American crews used simplified range estimation techniques and high-velocity ammunition that reduced the need for precise ballistic calculations. The 76mm M1A2 gun fired armor-piercing rounds at 2,600 feet per second, significantly faster than the German 75mm gun's 2,450 feet per second. Training protocols differed dramatically. German crews spent months mastering complex gunnery procedures, while American crews focused on speed and instinctive target engagement. American trainers emphasized rapid decision-making over methodical analysis. Hellcat crews practiced snap shooting, engaging targets within seconds of acquisition without extensive range calculation. The tactical implications were profound. German tanks, designed for deliberate engagement at long range, proved vulnerable to high-speed attacks that prevented them from utilizing their superior optics and training. Hellcat crews could engage German tanks before German gunners completed their lengthy target acquisition procedures. Combat results validated the American approach. Post-war analysis showed that Hellcat crews averaged 45 seconds from target acquisition to successful engagement, while German crews required an average of 3.2 minutes for the same sequence. In high-speed combat, this difference meant life or death. The manual comparison revealed more than tactical differences. It showed two fundamentally different approaches to warfare itself. German doctrine emphasized individual superiority and technical perfection, while American doctrine prioritized system effectiveness and overwhelming numbers. Western Front, September 1944. Fuel consumption data revealed a crucial advantage that American commanders exploited ruthlessly. The M18 Hellcat's operational range exceeded German heavy tanks by more than 200%, allowing sustained mobile operations that German forces could not match. The Continental R975 radial engine, originally designed for aircraft, consumed fuel at a rate that seemed impossible for a combat vehicle. Official test data showed the Hellcat achieved 8.5 miles per gallon during cross-country operations, exceptional efficiency for a 17-ton armored vehicle. This efficiency translated into an operational range of 105 miles without refueling, compared to the Tiger II's 38-mile range. German heavy tanks suffered from catastrophic fuel consumption that limited their tactical mobility. The Tiger II's Maybach HL-230 engine consumed 7.5 gallons per hour during combat operations, while the Hellcat's engine used only 3.8 gallons per hour. Over a typical 8-hour combat day, this difference meant the Hellcat consumed 30 gallons, compared to the Tiger II's 60 gallons, allowing two Hellcats to operate on the same fuel allocation as one German heavy tank. Supply records from the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion documented this advantage in practical terms. During the pursuit across France in August 1944, Hellcat units advanced 45 miles per day while maintaining full combat readiness. German Panzer units, limited by fuel shortages, could advance only 12 miles per day and frequently remained stationary for days awaiting fuel deliveries. The strategic implications compounded daily. German fuel production, devastated by Allied bombing of synthetic fuel plants, dropped to 85,000 tons per month by late 1944, less than half the Wehrmacht's minimum requirements. American fuel supplies, delivered through the Red Ball Express and other logistics networks, provided unlimited operational flexibility for mobiles. Units like Hellcat battalions. Combat. Reports from German tank crews described the frustration of watching American vehicles operate with apparent unlimited range while their own tanks remained immobilized. Obergefreiter Heinrich Weber, captured with his Panzer IV crew near Metz, told interrogators, "The Americans could attack, withdraw, reposition, and attack again from a different direction. We had to remain in place and hope they would come to us." Fuel efficiency also affected tactical doctrine. Hellcat units could conduct reconnaissance in force, probing German positions across wide frontages without concern for fuel consumption. German commanders, forced to conserve fuel, could not respond to multiple simultaneous threats and often found themselves out of position when Hellcats struck. The mathematics were devastating for German forces. A single Hellcat platoon of 4 vehicles could patrol a 20-mile sector for 8 hours using 120 gallons of fuel. The equivalent German force would require 240 gallons to cover the same area, fuel that was simply unavailable. By winter 1944, fuel shortages had effectively immobilized much of the German armored force. Hellcats continued operating at full capacity, exploiting this paralysis to destroy German tanks that could not withdraw or reposition. Fuel had become a weapon as effective as ammunition. Wehrmacht High Command. December 15, 1944, Tactical Directive 4344, classified, Geheim, and distributed to all Panzer units, represented a desperate attempt to develop countermeasures against American tank destroyer tactics. The directive acknowledged what German commanders had been reluctant to admit. Traditional tank warfare doctrine had become obsolete. The directive, signed by General Heinz Guderian himself, ordered immediate changes to German tank engagement procedures. Panzer crews were instructed to abandon methodical long-range engagements in favor of rapid close assault tactics designed to negate the Hellcat's speed advantage. This represented a complete reversal of German tactical doctrine developed over 3 years of warfare. Specific instructions revealed the extent of German confusion. Crews were ordered to advance in close formation to prevent Hellcats from engaging individual tanks in isolation. This violated fundamental German tactical principles that emphasized dispersed formations and individual tank initiative. The directive essentially asked German commanders to abandon everything they had learned about successful tank warfare. The document's most telling passage read, "Enemy tank destroyers demonstrate mobility characteristics that exceed our tactical assumptions. Crews must engage targets within visual range only and maintain close coordination to prevent enemy withdrawal." This admission revealed that German intelligence had fundamentally misunderstood American tank destroyer capabilities until it was too late to develop effective countermeasures. Training. Modifications outlined in the directive were equally desperate. German crews, trained for years in precision gunnery at long range, were suddenly ordered to practice immediate engagement procedures, essentially copying American quick-kill techniques that their equipment was not designed to perform. German tanks, with complex optical systems and methodical loading procedures, could not match Hellcat engagement speeds regardless of crew training. The directive's implementation revealed the hopelessness of German attempts to adapt. Panzer IV crews, accustomed to engaging at 1,500 meters, were ordered to close to 400 meters, well within the Hellcat's optimal engagement range. This played directly into American tactical strengths while negating German advantages in armor protection and gun performance. Field reports from units that attempted to implement the Directive 4344 documented predictable failures. Close formation advances made German tanks vulnerable to artillery and air attack, while rapid engagement techniques proved impossible with German equipment and training. Oberst Hans von Luck, commanding a Panzer regiment, reported, "The directive asks us to become something we are not, light cavalry instead of heavy artillery. The timing of the directive made success impossible, even if the tactics had been sound." Issued during the Battle of the Bulge, when German forces were already committed to their final offensive, the directive could not be properly implemented or tested. German crews attempted to learn new tactics while engaged in desperate combat against overwhelming numbers of Hellcats and other allied. Vehicles Directive 4344 stands as testimony to the technological revolution that American speed tactics represented. The German military machine, renowned for its tactical flexibility and innovation, could not adapt quickly enough to counter a weapon system that violated every assumption about armored warfare. Air Force Reconnaissance Wing, March 1945, aerial photographs from P-38. Lightning reconnaissance aircraft documented a phenomenon that German commanders tried desperately to hide from. Their own high command, the systematic destruction of Wehrmacht armored forces by American tank destroyer. Units' photographs taken over the Rhineland during Operationos Veritable showed a devastating pattern. German tank graveyards, visible from 10,000 feet, revealed the effectiveness of Hellcat hit-and-run tactics. Intelligence analysts counted 127 destroyed or abandoned German armored vehicles in a 12-square-mile area, losses that represented more than an entire panzer regiment. The photographic evidence told a story that German after-action reports could not conceal. Unlike battle damage from artillery or air attack, which typically showed widespread destruction across large areas, Hellcat kills demonstrated precision engagement patterns. German tanks were destroyed individually or in small groups, often while positioned defensively or during withdrawal movements. Photo interpreters noted peculiar damage patterns that became the signature of Hellcat engagements. German tanks showed penetration holes in side armor rather than frontal damage, indicating attacks from unexpected angles at high speed. Many destroyed vehicles were found in positions that should have provided protection against frontal assault, hull-down positions behind ridges or in prepared defensive positions. Serial photography, taken over the same areas on consecutive days, revealed the speed of German losses. Photographs from March 8, 1945, showed 17 operational German tanks in defensive positions near Cologne. By March 12th, only 3 remained operational, with 14 destroyed or abandoned. This represented a 78% loss rate in 4 days of combat intelligence analysis correlated these aerial photographs with radio intercepts and prisoner interrogations to confirm Hellcat involvement. In the majority of these engagements, German tank crews consistently reported attacks by high-speed American vehicles that engaged and withdrew before effective return fire could be delivered. The geographic pattern of destruction revealed the strategic impact of Hellcat operations. Unlike static battles that produced concentrated damage in small areas, Hellcat engagements spread German losses across wide frontages. This forced German commanders to disperse their remaining armor, rather than concentrating it for effective counterattacks. Comparative analysis with similar photographs from the Eastern Front showed the unique nature of Western Front tank losses. Soviet attacks typically produced massive destruction in concentrated areas during major offensives. American tank destroyer operations created steady, continuous losses that prevented German forces from maintaining effective defensive positions. The photographic record documented more than tactical success. It revealed the collapse of German armored doctrine. Images showed German tanks abandoned in perfect mechanical condition, their crews apparently fleeing rather than engaging American forces. This psychological impact proved as devastating as the physical destruction. By April 1945, reconnaissance photographs showed entire sectors of the Western Front devoid of German armor. Areas that had contained hundreds of tanks in January showed only burned hulks and abandoned positions. The systematic nature of these losses, documented from the air, provided irrefutable evidence that German armored forces had effectively ceased to exist as a fighting force. Héricourt, France. September 19, 1944. The OSH 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion's after action. Report documented the most decisive Hellcat engagement of the war. A battle that demonstrated how American speed tactics could annihilate an entire German armored formation in a single day. The engagement began at 06:15, hours when reconnaissance elements of the 704th identified a German armored column consisting of 48 tanks and assault guns advancing toward American positions near Héricourt. The German force, elements of the 111th Panzer Brigade, included 22 Panzer IV tanks, 18 Panther tanks, and 8 Sturmgeschütz assault guns. A formidable force by any measure. Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Leiper, commanding the 704th, deployed his 18 M18 Hellcats in a revolutionary tactical formation. Instead of establishing defensive positions, Leiper ordered his vehicles to maintain mobile reserve positions 3 miles behind the front lines. Ready to respond to German attacks with rapid flanking movements, the German advance proceeded according to traditional Panzer doctrine. The column moved slowly and deliberately, maintaining proper spacing and reconnaissance procedures. German commanders expected to encounter American defensive positions and engage in methodical frontal attacks. They had not prepared for what followed. At 06:42 hours, the 1st Hellcat platoon struck the German column from the southeast, engaging the rear elements at a range of 800 meters. The 4 Hellcats destroyed 6 German vehicles in 90 seconds, then withdrew at maximum speed before German guns could traverse to engage them. This attack pattern, repeated every 15 to 20 minutes from different directions, prevented German forces from organizing effective return fire. The 704th's report detailed the psychological impact on German crews. Radio intercepts recorded increasingly frantic German communications as commanders tried to coordinate responses to attacks that came from multiple directions. German doctrine provided no procedures for defending against high-speed attacks from constantly changing positions. By 1200 hours, the 704th had destroyed 31 German armored vehicles, while suffering only 2 Hellcats damaged. The remaining German forces, reduced to 17 operational vehicles, attempted to withdraw. This withdrawal exposed them to further Hellcat attacks, as the German vehicles could not match the speed of pursuing American tank destroyers. The final phase of the battle demonstrated the decisive nature of speed in armored warfare. German tanks, attempting to reach defensive positions 5 miles away, were engaged repeatedly during their withdrawal. Hellcats, capable of 55 miles per hour cross-country, could overtake withdrawing German vehicles and engage them from optimal positions. The battle concluded at 15 to 30 hours with the destruction or capture of the entire German force. Of 48 German armored vehicles that began the attack, only 3 escaped. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion lost no vehicles and suffered only 4 casualties. This 16-to-1 victory ratio demonstrated the revolutionary nature of American tank destroyer tactics. The Air Accord engagement proved that speed could defeat armor. Training and numerical advantage, when properly employed, a single American battalion had destroyed an entire German armored brigade in less than 9 hours. Wehrmacht Personnel Office, April 1945. The final German tank strength reports, compiled as Allied forces approached Berlin, documented the systematic destruction of the Panzer force that had once conquered most of Europe. These statistics revealed the devastating effectiveness of American tank destroyer operations. German armored strength on the Western Front peaked at 247 tanks and assault guns in December 1944 during the launching of the Ardennes Offensive. By April 1945, Wehrmacht records showed only 347 operational armored vehicles remaining, a loss rate of 87.8% in 4 months. American tank destroyer units, particularly Hellcat battalions, were credited with 1,147 of these kills. The loss pattern revealed the unique nature of Hellcat operations. Unlike Eastern Front battles, where German tanks were destroyed in massive set-piece engagements, Western Front losses occurred steadily and continuously. German armored units reported daily losses of 3 out of 5 vehicles throughout January and February 1945, creating a hemorrhage that could not be stopped or replaced. Individual unit statistics told the story in human terms. The 9th Panzer Division entered combat in December 1944 with 124 tanks. By March 1945, the division reported only 8 operational vehicles, a 93.5% loss rate. Similar figures appeared across all German armored formations on the Western Front. German attempts to calculate loss ratios produced devastating conclusions. For every Hellcat destroyed or damaged, German forces lost an average of 11.3 armored vehicles. This represented the most lopsided loss ratio in the history of armored warfare, exceeding even the worst German defeats on the Eastern Front. The economic impact was equally catastrophic. Each destroyed German tank represented approximately 300,000 man-hours of production, 15 tons of steel, and specialized components that could not be replaced. The destruction of 1,147 German armored vehicles by Hellcats alone represented the loss of more than 2 years of total German tank production. Personnel losses compounded the material destruction. German tank crews, trained over months of intensive instruction, could not be quickly replaced. The death or capture of experienced tank commanders created a leadership crisis that affected the entire Panzer force. By March 1945, most German tank units were led by NCOs or junior officers with minimal combat experience. The psychological impact appeared in German morale reports. Tank crews reported extreme reluctance to engage American forces, with many units requesting transfer to the Eastern Front, where they faced more predictable Soviet tactics. The unpredictability of Hellcat attacks had broken the confidence of German armored units. Fuel shortages, exacerbated by constant combat losses, created a vicious cycle. German tanks, immobilized by lack of fuel, became easy targets for Hellcat units. The destruction of fuel trucks and supply vehicles by ranging Hellcats further reduced German mobility, creating more static targets. The final Wehrmacht report, dated April 28, 1945, acknowledged what German commanders had been unwilling to admit for months. American tank destroyer tactics had achieved what no enemy had previously accomplished: the complete destruction of German armored superiority. The Panzer force that had terrorized Europe lay in ruins across French and German fields, victim of a tactical revolution it could not counter, Allied prisoner of war camp, Reims, France. May 15, 1945. The interrogation transcripts of captured German tank crews provided intimate testimony about the psychological impact of fighting against M18 Hellcats. These first-hand accounts revealed how American speed tactics had broken the morale of the once invincible Panzer force. Obergefreiter Fritz Hoffmann, gunner in a Panzer IV destroyed near Cologne, described the helplessness his crew felt when facing Hellcats. You hear the engine sound, high-pitched like an aircraft. Then you see movement, very fast, too fast for a tank. By the time you traverse the gun, they are already shooting. Then they disappear. It happens so quickly that you question if you really saw anything. The interrogation records documented a pattern of psychological warfare that American commanders had not anticipated. Hellcat operations created a state of constant anxiety among German tank crews who could never predict when or where the next attack would come. This uncertainty proved as destructive as the physical damage inflicted by Hellcat guns. Hauptfeldwebel Klaus Weber, a veteran tank commander with 3 years of combat experience, admitted that his crew had abandoned their Panther tank rather than face another Hellcat attack. "We were not cowards, but you cannot fight an enemy you cannot catch." The Americans had solved the secret of making tanks disappear. One moment they are there, shooting at you. The next moment, nothing. The transcripts revealed that German crews had developed desperate countermeasures that violated their training and doctrine. Tank commanders reported keeping engines running constantly to enable rapid movement, despite fuel shortages that made this wasteful practice dangerous. Others described abandoning hull-down positions to maintain mobility, sacrificing protection for the chance to evade Hellcat attacks. Particularly telling were accounts from German veterans of the Eastern Front who had faced Soviet armor. Unteroffizier Hans Müller, with 18 months of combat against T-34 tanks, he stated, "The Russians you could fight. They came straight at you, and you could see them coming. These American tank destroyers are like ghosts. They strike from nowhere and vanish before you can respond." The interrogations documented the breakdown of German tactical cohesion. Tank platoons, trained to operate as coordinated units, began spreading out excessively to avoid presenting concentrated targets for Hellcat attacks. This dispersion made German units vulnerable to defeat in detail and prevented effective mutual support. Mental health impacts appeared throughout the transcripts. German tank crews described symptoms that modern psychiatrists would recognize as combat stress disorder, inability to sleep, hypervigilance, and panic reactions to engine sounds. Many crews reported abandoning tanks upon hearing high-speed engines, even when the sounds came from German vehicles. The most devastating testimony came from Oberleutnant Heinrich von Stauffen, a company commander whose unit lost 23 tanks to Hellcat attacks in 2 weeks. "We began this war believing that German tanks were superior to all others. The Americans taught us that speed matters more than armor. By the end, my men feared the sound of fast engines more than enemy artillery. You cannot maintain fighting spirit when the enemy can strike and escape at will." These interrogation records preserved the human cost of technological revolution in warfare. Pentagon, Washington, D.C., September 1945. The official U.S. Army technical evaluation of the M18 Hellcat program concluded that this single weapon system had fundamentally altered the nature of armored warfare and contributed decisively to Allied victory in Europe. The report represented the first comprehensive analysis of how speed tactics had defeated traditional tank doctrine. The evaluation committee, led by General Jacob Devers, reviewed combat reports from all Hellcat units deployed in Europe. Their findings revealed statistical superiority that exceeded all pre-war projections. The 2,507 Hellcats deployed achieved a kill ratio of 3.8 enemy vehicles destroyed for each Hellcat lost, the highest ratio of any American armored vehicle in World War II. Technical analysis credited the Hellcat's success to the integration of 3 revolutionary concepts: maximum mobility, adequate firepower, and minimal protection. This combination violated conventional military wisdom that emphasized heavy armor and powerful guns over speed and maneuverability. The Hellcat proved that mobility could substitute for protection when properly employed. The report's strategic assessment concluded that Hellcat operations had shortened the war in Europe by an estimated 4 to 6 months. By destroying German armored reserves and preventing effective counterattacks, Hellcat units enabled rapid Allied advances that would have been impossible against intact German tank forces. The economic value of this acceleration exceeded the entire cost of the Hellcat program. Combat effectiveness data revealed the weapon's true revolutionary nature. Hellcat units achieved first-shot kill probabilities of 73%, significantly higher than any contemporary tank or tank destroyer. This accuracy, combined with the ability to engage and withdraw before return fire, created tactical conditions that German forces could not counter with existing equipment or doctrine. The evaluation team credited Hellcat design philosophy with influencing all subsequent American armored vehicle development. The principle of trading protection for mobility became central to Cold War tank design, leading directly to vehicles like the M48 Patton and M60 main battle tank. The Hellcat had demonstrated that speed was the paramount tactical advantage in modern warfare. Logistical analysis showed that Hellcats required 40% less maintenance than comparable or tracked vehicles and could operate effectively with standard automotive tools and replacement parts. This reliability, combined with their speed and firepower, made them ideal weapons for the rapid advances that characterized the final months of the European War. The report's conclusion emphasized the Hellcat's role in demonstrating American industrial and technological superiority, the ability to design, produce, and deploy 2,507 advanced military vehicles while maintaining superiority in all other areas of military production proved that democratic industrial capacity could overwhelm any totalitarian system. The technical evaluation established the M18 Hellcat as more than a successful weapon. It was proof that American innovation and industrial might could revolutionize warfare itself. Speed had defeated armor, democracy had triumphed over tyranny, and the Hellcat had played a decisive role in the most important victory in modern history, Fort Knox, Kentucky. June 6, 1995. A simple bronze plaque, weathered by 50 years of Kentucky seasons, bears silent testimony to one of the most revolutionary weapons in military history. The memorial stands where the first M18 Hellcat crews trained in 1943, learning tactics that would change the nature of armored warfare forever. The inscription reads, "In memory of the crews of the M18 Hellcat tank destroyer. Their courage and skill proved that speed and innovation triumph over brute force. 2,507 vehicles produced, 3,854 enemy vehicles destroyed, victory through mobility." 1943-1945. These numbers tell only part of the story. Behind each statistic stands a crew of 5 men who trusted their lives to a revolutionary concept, that a lightly armored vehicle moving at maximum speed could defeat the heaviest tanks in the world. They proved that American industrial innovation and democratic values could overcome any military challenge. The Hellcat's legacy extends far beyond World War II. Modern military doctrine still emphasizes the principles that made the Hellcat successful: mobility, firepower, and rapid engagement. Today's main battle tanks, despite their heavy armor, incorporate speed and maneuverability as primary design features. The Hellcat's influence appears in every contemporary armored vehicle. Veterans who served with Hellcat units often visit this memorial, their numbers diminishing each year. They remember the sound of the Continental engine at full throttle, the shock of impact when their 76mm gun struck enemy armor, and the satisfaction of outmaneuvering opponents who thought heavy armor made them invincible. The memorial also honors the industrial workers who built these revolutionary machines. Women and men working in Detroit factories proved that American production capacity could overwhelm any enemy through superior organization, innovation, and determination. The Hellcat represented the perfect marriage of industrial might and military innovation. School groups regularly visit the memorial, learning how American ingenuity defeated fascism. Teachers explain that the Hellcat's success came not from superior firepower or protection, but from a different way of thinking about warfare. Speed, properly applied, could defeat any amount of armor. The bronze plaque requires no elaborate monument or soaring architecture. Its simple message honors men who proved that democracy, innovation, and courage could triumph over tyranny and brute force. In an age of precision weapons and advanced technology, the M18 Hellcat remains a symbol of American military excellence. The Hellcat crews who trained at Fort Knox in 1943 could not have imagined that their revolutionary weapon would influence military doctrine for generations. They knew only that they had a job to do and a war to win. They did both with speed, precision, and honor. What is your perspective on this part of history? Share your thoughts in the comments, because every memory and reflection helps keep the past alive.